everyone. Call this meeting of the Board of Education to order. This is the one time a year that I get to chair the meeting, at least at the beginning of the meeting, as we have the election of officers for the Board of Education. At this time, I declare we do have a quorum present, and I'm going to ask that Board Member Linda Murray lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance at a moment of silence. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This time I'll entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Offer a second? Second. Ms. Murray, all those in favor of the agenda as written? Okay, 6-0, and student rep concurs. We have two sets of minutes to approve. I believe November 16th closed session minutes and November 16th business minutes. We have a motion for approval of the closed session business minutes.
Dr. Michaels, I move for the approval of the closed session minutes dated Tuesday, November 16th, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Evans, second. Any discussion? All those in favor of that motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And any abstentions or abstention? Okay. 5 with 1 abstention. And approval of the business meeting minutes.
Dr. Michael, I move for the approval of the business meeting minutes dated Tuesday, November 16th, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
And Ms. Murray, second. Any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, call for the vote. All those in favor? Okay, looks like unanimous, 6-0, and the student member concurs. With that, it brings us to our special board action, where the board nominates and elects president and vice president. At this time, I'll open nominations for president of the Board of Education for the upcoming year.
Dr. Michael, I move to approve the nomination and appointment of the president of the Washington County Board of Education, Melissa Williams.
Melissa Williams is nominated. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Okay. Are there other nominations for president of the Board of Education? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote for Mrs. Williams to be president of the Board of Education going forward for the next year. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Okay, 6-0, and the student concurs. Now entertain motion for election of vice president. Ms. Murray?
Dr. Michael, I nominate Mr. Stan Stauffer as Vice President of the Board of Education.
All right, Mr. Stauffer's been nominated. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Ms. Sentmeyer, second. Are there other nominations for vice president? Seeing none, we'll move forward with the vote. Motion to approve Mr. Stauffer as vice president of the Board of Education. I'll signify by raising your right hand. 6-0, and student concurs. At this time, Mrs. Williams, I will turn the meeting back over to you. I don't think I forgot any steps in there, but you can make up for me if I did.
Thank you, Dr. Michael. Okay, we'll move to new business, and we have one item under new business that we're going to do now, and that is a presentation by Dr. Gary Willow, Associate Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction.
Good evening, President Williams, Dr. Michael, and board members. I am requesting approval of a gift of $25,000 from the Volvo Group Trucks to Washington County Public Schools CTE Department to be used to expand and enhance our VEX robotics programs. With me this evening is Marcus McKinnon, Site Vice President for Volvo, Sarah Golden, Acting Human Resources Director, and Belinda Vinson, Communications Manager for Volvo. We're very, very happy to have them here tonight. Later this evening, you're going to get an update on our computer science pre-K through 12 programs. And honestly, our success is really in part to, one, having an amazing staff, but also all of the community support that we receive. And Volvo has been a wonderful partner for several years. So,
And if I could add to that before the board votes, again, as Dr. Willow indicated, Volvo has been an ongoing partner with us, especially with their VEX robotics program. We've had a little disruption with COVID, but for a long time now, they've been very supportive of our schools that have participated in that program, particularly the competition we've held out at South High a number of years. Look forward to get that back up and running. And we appreciate their support for anything robotics and everything robotics that their gift will help support. So we certainly appreciate their efforts and would appreciate the approval of the board for this gift.
Okay, is there a motion?
Recommend approval of the Volvo donation of $25,000.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Any discussion? All those in favor of approval of the Volvo donation of $25,000 to Washington County Public Schools? Okay, we're unanimous, and the student member concurs.
I don't know if anybody from Volvo wanted to share any comments at all. Feel free to.
Yeah, thank you very much. Marcus here. Hello. First of all, I just have to say I have both my boys in the Washington County school system in Smithsburg. They love it, so thank you very much for everything you do. This is really a great opportunity for us to give back, and also, you know, it's a mutual win-win here, I think. We want more technicians, more engineers being interested to work with Volvo, and we're going to go through a big transformation in our industry, so we need all the skills we can find. So we're super happy to be part of this program, and we look forward to continue. So thank you very much for the approval.
Okay, thank you very much. And board members, if you would push back your chairs and kind of come to the center, we're going to ask our guests to come forward.
Now you want them back.
Was worried about you and then you went.
She said no mask, right? Yeah, I am. Are we taking them off or leaving them on?
Leaving them.
Okay, I'm going to have the board members kind of part the Cs a little bit. Part the Cs?
Lumber Aaron, after you move. Okay, anybody else? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for your generosity and for your investment in our school system and our kids. We'll have a continuation of new business after public comment. This is the portion of the meeting that we devote to public comment. And I'd like to read from Board Policy KD. This is under the policy statement and procedures, Roman numeral 3, Roman numeral A, number 1. Each person wishing to address the Board of Education is encouraged but not required to sign up prior to the meeting and may address any topic concerning Washington County Public Schools except personnel, or student matters which clearly identify an individual or individuals. Each speaker may speak for up to 5 minutes. Board Member Bickford is our timekeeper. Would you like to explain the system?
Sure. The yellow means you have about 30 seconds left, and red means to wrap it up.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call forward Carlos Malott. Carlos? Please excuse the formality, Mr. Malott. It's good to see you.
You're fine. Of course, you're fine. All right. President Williams, Dr. Michael, members of the Board of Education, good evening. My name is Carlos Malott, representative for the Washington County Teachers Association. Thank you for your time, service, and efforts. I'd like to thank those of you who responded to our invitation to Educator for a Day. I would also like to thank you, Mr. Stauffer, for accepting our invitation, for your time, and for your efforts to spend time in our schools. Thank you to the staff at Clear Spring High School and Eastern Elementary School for hosting Commissioner Burkett. And thank you to the staff at South Hagerstown High and Bester Elementary for hosting Mr. Stauffer. We had a successful American Education Week with our Educator for a Day event. Next year, WCTA would really like to partner with WCPS so that together we can encourage more participation and make next year's event even more successful. At the last board meeting, I don't recall which one of you, but one of you asked, what can you do to help? I wanted to give you a different sort of suggestion today. One thing that you can do to help is to continue to visit schools and to continue to let staff and the community know the schools you visit. I'm not asking you to involve yourself in personnel matters. I'm not asking you to divulge the details of your visits, nor am I asking you to surprise anybody. I think that letting the public know that you make the effort to visit schools allows stakeholders to know that you are having lived experiences in the buildings that, in addition to reports from staff, contribute to your decision-making process. With CES level and more state level expectations and no new time to meet these expectations, with the staffing shortage and with the shared trauma of the pandemic, it is more important than ever, not only Board of Ed members, but also the county commissioners and members of our state delegation to spend time in our schools and see the amazing things that educators are doing to meet the needs of students, as well as see the realities and challenges they face every day. Thank you for your time and consideration. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Mr. Nathan Foltz. Is Mr. Foltz here? Okay. Tracy Wolbert. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Tracy Wolbert, and I'm a proud teacher from Ruth Ann Monroe Primary School. I love my school, my colleagues, my leadership team, and especially my students and their families. This is my 17th year teaching in Washington County Public Schools. 5 of those years I was at Bester Elementary, 10 years at Salem Avenue Elementary, and 2 years at Ruth Ann Monroe Primary School. All 17 of these years have been dedicated to Title I schools. In these 17 years, I have learned, laughed, cried, led, inspired, struggled, disciplined, praised, mothered, and loved hundreds of students as if they were my own. I have met some amazing teachers and have been supported by some of the best administration in the county. I've seen moments in my career that I'd like to erase from my memory and some moments that I hope to never forget. It hasn't always been easy, but it definitely has been worth it. Unfortunately, I'm here this evening to share some concerns I have for my students, my staff, and the Title I community of WCPS. I'm here to ask for help, support, and resolutions to some major problems we are experiencing. My first area of concern is teacher retention, especially in Title I schools. This has been an ongoing problem and only seems to be getting worse. Just in the past month, 2 of my 8 teammates have resigned, and I have heard several other colleagues say, I don't know how much longer I can do this. Due to these resignations, our administration had no other choice but to divide students and place them in our classrooms. As a result, I have assessed my new students, I have adjusted math and reading groups, learned how to discipline new behaviors, modified lessons to meet the needs of these new students, engaged new learners with special education services, and updated information and emergency plans for substitutes. Additionally, these temporary students are not enrolled in MySynergy, therefore I must complete separate attendance, separate lunch count, and separate grading sheets daily. These tasks may be minor, but when your plate is already full, there's hard to make room for anything extra. The compensation for absorbing students that the county is providing is much appreciated. However, sometimes time is just more valuable than money in your pocket. Is paying a teacher a few more bucks better than having a small class size that these Title I students deserve? Would you want your own child in a class that continues to grow in size, giving him or her less personalized attention? Can we shift our thinking to possibly finding a better solution? Can we pre-plan what steps to take if we have resignations occur mid-year? If we can't find highly qualified teachers to take on these positions, then maybe we should look within WCPS to help with this crisis. Can we think of a way to encourage teachers to want to teach in Title I schools and actually stay in these schools for more than a few years? Can we offer more support to new teachers who may be struggling with severe behavior issues? Because let's face it, great teaching cannot occur until you have strong classroom management. Most Title I students have an abundance of brand new teachers, fresh out of college. I was one of them. It takes time to learn how to teach these amazing kids, all while learning the curriculum and the demands of the county. And finally, how can we alleviate putting more responsibilities on the teachers who choose to stay in Title I schools, like myself, when other teachers may need to take a different path? My next area of concern is our 40-minute dismissal that is occurring at Ruth Ann Monroe Primary School. Yes, you heard it correctly, 40 minutes of dismissal of students waiting in our classrooms to be dismissed to their buses. This is just unacceptable. Why is it okay that some teachers in our county get 20 minutes of uninterrupted time? That's 100 minutes a week at the end of their workday, while other teachers like myself don't get even 1 second of uninterrupted time to prepare materials for the next school day, contact parents, chat with a colleague about a student, etc., unless we choose to stay after our contracted time of 4:15 p.m., which is quite difficult for staff members who have to pick up their own children from daycare by a certain time. I'm aware that WCPS and WCTA are working on collaborative solutions for this issue. However, time is of the essence. Would more Ruth Ann teachers be able to attend after-school professional development if dismissal was shortened? Could this lengthy dismissal be affecting teacher retention at Ruth Ann Monroe Primary School? Would teachers be more likely to stay at Ruth Ann if they had 10 to 20 minutes of uninterrupted time at the end of their workday? Does a major change need to occur in our schedule to alleviate this bus transportation issue? In conclusion, teacher retention in Title I schools and the negative reputation that these schools have is a major issue that needs to be addressed immediately. I'm tired of hearing, oh, you teach at one of the worst schools in the county. What I really want to hear is, oh, those students are so lucky to have you. They deserve it. Additionally, I'm sorry, I lost my spot. Let's be the change we wish to see. Additionally, I'm hoping to see an immediate solution to the lengthy dismissal at Ruth Ann Monroe Primary. This is definitely not an incentive to keep teachers in a school that is already dealing with issues that are unimaginable. Teachers, when you think about quitting, think about why you started. Our students need us. Keep asking for help. Learn to be flexible and do what's best for your students and yourself. Board of Ed members, we are asking for some major support through these unprecedented times. We can't afford to lose any more teachers. Our students need us now more than ever. I would like to leave you with this quote. Candles melt away as they are used. We often feel we are the same, burning up, burning out, burning down. What we must remember, though, is how we light the room of this world in the time allotted to us. As time evolves, we continue to face new challenges. Please remember that our time is just as valuable as being compensated for extra duties. For this reason, I'm respectfully requesting that the Board of Education modify the school calendar to give teachers more time to navigate these challenges through these challenges so we can be the light for our children. Thank you for listening to my concerns. Together we can find solutions. Will you light the world of education with me? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walbert. If that's the last name I have on the list, is there anyone else who would like to come forward to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Sorry.
Your name, please?
My name is Susan Day, and I teach third grade in Washington County. I would like to describe my life as a teacher so that you and anyone outside of the classroom can better understand the life of a teacher in today's classroom. 15 years ago, I left a career that I loved, where I made more than $10,000 a year more than I'm making today as a teacher. I left because I wanted to do more. I wanted to have a job that meant something. Aside from the major loss of income, I had no idea what I was in for. The long hours, the workload, and most importantly, the emotional stress I would endure. First, the workload. I teach third grade at Eastern Elementary, but the students in my class range in ability level from a kindergarten reader learning his beginning sounds to a third grade reading level. In math, I have students who can't count to 20 and students who know their multiplication facts. COVID has definitely had an impact on our society, but it has also had an impact on our educational system. The gap has widened the academic range of students in every one of our classrooms, but we teach them all. The planning to accommodate such a wide range of ability levels takes hours, and those hours take place at home. For me, as an educator at the end of my career, it's not a big deal. I don't have little ones at home. My colleagues, I worry about. I try to listen to them and understand how, can't imagine how they balance being a parent with the workload that we are enduring right now. Second, the long hours. When I started teaching 15 years ago, there were mandatory training we took at the beginning of the year. Maybe 15, 20 minutes of safe school trainings. No big deal. Today, at the beginning of the school year, teachers are required to take almost 5 hours of safe school training. We're not given time to do this, and we must complete it on our own. It doesn't sound like much, but those are one of many examples of little decisions that are made that impact our lives because you're adding to our workload. Somebody needs to look at that, condense it. Every year it gets longer. 5 hours of my own time at home. Are they all necessary? Could they be combined? The people making decisions, every little bit of time that you take from my personal life adds up. Grading. Every marking period, we are given a half day to enter our grades. And did you know that almost every single marking period, without a doubt, the system slows to a halt and eventually goes down? And we end up doing grades at home. That is unacceptable. I can't imagine being a young parent. I really can't. And balancing a home life. And that's what worries me. Just like the person who spoke before me, we are going to lose the best and the brightest. We are going to lose teachers and end up with classrooms with close to 40 students in it because nobody wants this job anymore. We are graduating fewer and fewer teachers from our colleges because nobody wants this job. At Eastern Elementary, where I teach, I have students in my classroom from 8:45 to 4:15 at the end of my work time day, and sometimes beyond that. There is no end of day time to wipe down tables and get ready for the next day. We have asked for a solution to be found to give us that half hour, 20 minutes at the end of the day that other teachers in the county have. The solution was to move our school day ahead by an hour. As a professional, in any career I've ever had, I found that the most disrespectful thing. Finally, the stress. In my time as an educator, here are a few of my experiences. from one of my third graders. Mrs. Day, can I take a nap? No, sweetheart. Remember, we're here to learn. Try going to bed earlier tonight, but I can't sleep at home. Why not? Well, last year, Mom tried to kill me and my brother. She locked us in the house and lit it on fire. Another student, while discussing her behavior problems, telling her that I would have to call her mom if things didn't get better. Mrs. Day, please don't do that. I might have to. Mrs. Day, my mom's not a nice person. You have to be exaggerating. Mrs. Day, I watched my mother kill my little brother, stuff him in my backpack, and throw him in a river. She was 8 years old. Another student, wearing long pants in my classroom in the heat of summer. Don't worry, I can get you some shorts. Mrs. Day, I can't wear shorts. What do you mean? Everybody does. I can't. He lifted his pant leg to show me an ankle bracelet. Not the fashionable ones that people wear, one that was put on him by the police. He was 7. The reason? He proceeded to tell me about his life as a drug runner in Hagerstown.
Mrs. Day, your time has expired. Can you just,
I didn't see the red.
do you have much left?
No, I just have a paragraph.
Okay, go ahead.
Finally, last year, the most heartbreaking thing that ever happened to me as an educator. I had a very sweet little student who died of a drug overdose. I think about that all the time. The stress we are under has to be taken away. I could go on with many more examples that every teacher in the county experiences, but we need help. The long hours, the workload, the stress. So where do we go from here? Well, here's where we go. First, it's not always about money. We don't always want money. We want respect. We want a seat at the table. We want a seat at this table when little decisions are made that add hours and hours to what we are required to do. We want to sit at this table, and we want time to do our jobs. And a possible solution that I've heard is happening all over the country is we want a half-hour early dismissal day every day a month to close my door, to take a breath, and to plan and put the effort into my job that our students in Washington County deserve. And that would not cost anybody anything. Thank you, and thank you for extending my time.
Thank you, Mrs. Day. Is there anyone else who'd like to come forward? Thank you. This is the time for board member response to public comment. Colleagues, should you care to respond, you have 3 minutes. Mrs. Murray.
I just wanted to tell Mr. Malott, I thank you for your invitation. I did go visit schools. I went to Ruth Ann Monroe and thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a wonderful experience. And then another day I got to go to McKay Dowd. So both times I thoroughly enjoyed visiting the schools, talking to the staff. It was a great time. So I did not answer your email, and I apologize for that, but I did go visit some schools.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. We have no old business to conduct this evening, so we'll move to the remainder of our new business. Our second item for consideration under new business this evening is the consent agenda. Mr. Scott Baked will be presenting.
Good evening, President Williams, members of the board, Dr. Michael. Tonight I have 7 items for your review. These items were reviewed by our Purchasing Review Committee and are being recommended for approval, and staff is available if you have any additional questions.
Thank you, Mr. Baked. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the awards, renewals, and procurements for mechanical and refrigeration maintenance for Food Service Department renewal to MTS equipment for mechanical at a cost of $35,928, plus the cost of non-consumable parts, and Cte Construction Company, Inc. for refrigeration at a cost of $63,000, plus the cost of non-consumable parts and refrigerant. Gasoline and diesel fuel deliveries to AC&T Company, Inc. for tank wagon deliveries, and Petroleum Traders Corporation for transport deliveries at the bid factor plus minus the current Opus wholesale price. Generator preventative maintenance to Kelly Generator and Equipment, Inc. at a 2-year cost of $79,782. Apple Computers to Apple, Inc. at a cost of $142,569.42. Sphero Classroom Robotics Products to Sphero, Inc. at a cost of $74,298.32. Vex Classroom Robotics Products to Ronald A. Williams Limited at a cost of $84,176.12. And Mobile Device Management for Apple Products Renewal to CDWG at a cost of $194,532.36.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second to Mr. Bickford's motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Any questions for Mr. Bagdell? Any discussion?
I just have 2 questions. I wrote down here laptops, we're replacing computers, right?
There's MacBooks and iMacs.
Okay. And how old are the ones that are being replaced?
So the iMacs that are being replaced, I have a note here from some discussion we had, were purchased in 2013.
So is that about how long we can expect to get out of these as well?
Yeah, I would say, I don't know if Joe Allen is here for technology, but I think, that's probably a fair life cycle for a computer with updates and things. They stop supporting the updates after a certain number of years.
I think Dr. Willow had something to say. He's trying to avoid the stampede, it looked like.
Our CTE laptops and our desktops. The desktops do give typically a better value, longer shelf life. That's standard with any desktop. The ones that we're replacing this evening is from 2013. So 8 years for a desktop that's being used every day in multiple classrooms is probably a very good shelf life. Laptops offer greater flexibility, especially in classrooms that might not be able to house desktops. We get several years out of those with at least an average of 5, typically much longer than that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I do have a note here. 5 years is what I think the cycle is that they usually, with updates, and they have that for Windows, Chrome, or Mac devices, Apple devices.
Excellent, thank you. And then the only other one I had was about the mobile device management for the Apple products. What kind of support exactly are they providing? Is there like a specific example you could give? Not for all of them, but just in general, because I saw that, sorry, I lost my thought spot there. So
Might be able to help you out.
Yeah, so like the software maintenance, what kind of software? Is it the educational software or just the performance software?
Good evening, Board. President Williams, Dr. Michael, and the Board. To answer your question, the software is called JAMP, and it is computer management software, so it's not educational software. It manages the Apple products.
Okay, thank you.
You already asked my question about the mobile device management. I would just say this, I don't know how long that was set up out there in the hallway, but I hope some of the people in the audience had a chance to see the robotics and the classroom thing, starting as early as pre-K. That was very interesting to see how they make it a game. They make it fun for the kids, but it's very interesting to see that. That's the wave of the future. So it was very interesting. I hope some of you had a chance to stop out there and see it. I see they're just packing up, so I assume it was set up until at least 6 o'clock, I would assume.
And I might add that purchase is completely grant funded, that we were able to obtain grants for all of the VEX and Spiros that we're asking for your approval tonight.
Yeah.
So this did not come from any of our general funds.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Gupta.
I had a question about the Apple computers, the MacBook Pros. Those are laptops, right?
Yes.
Are those going to go to the students in those programs as a replacement for Chromebooks, or are those going to stay in classrooms?
No, we already have MacBook Pros in those classrooms, so we're either updating, or in one case, we had an increase in enrollment, so we ordered 5 additional to meet the needs of that particular schools. What's nice about all of our CTE purchases. We also are using some of the curriculum funds. So this won't just be students that are impacted that are in CTE programs. You'll have yearbook, journalism classes, art classes that are also going to benefit from this purchase. So this is actually going to impact several thousands of students over the next several years.
Thank you.
Anything further? All right, we'll move to the vote. We're voting on Mr. Bickford's motion for approval of this evening's consent agenda and Mr. Salver's second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, we have 7 votes, unanimous, and the student member concurs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item under consideration is a second amendment to naming rights, an agreement between the Board of Education and the Barbara Ingram School for the Arts Foundation, Inc. Mrs. Ram, good evening.
Good evening, President Williams, members of the board, Dr. Michael. The Barbara Ingram School for the Arts Foundation Incorporated and the Board of Education entered into a naming rights agreement on November 19th, 2019. The naming rights agreement authorizes the foundation to identify entities and persons who would be willing to donate funds in exchange for being granted naming rights in the new Vincent Roth Grow Academic Center, school facilities located in the Academic Center, and the original Barbara Ingram School for the Arts School campus. The Board of Education and the foundation entered into an amendment to the naming rights agreement on November 3rd, 2020 in order to add naming rights for the brick pavers that compose the front sidewalk outside the school on South Potomac Street. This is a subsequent amendment. The foundation is requesting an additional amendment for naming rights for the Vincent Roth Grow Academic Center. The additional naming right is for the collaboration areas on the 2nd floor and the 3rd floor area of the Academic Center. At this time, the foundation is requesting the board to approve the second amendment to the naming rights agreement that modifies the attachment of the naming rights agreement to include collaboration areas.
Thank you, Mrs. Ram. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the second amendment to naming rights agreement by and between the Board of Education of Washington County and the Barbara Ingram School for the Arts Foundation.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Is there any discussion or any questions for Mrs. Ram? Mr. Bickford?
Am I understanding this correctly? So it just would be adding an additional area as a possible area that somebody could purchase naming rights for?
That's correct. It's for the collaboration areas.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Anything else? All right, we'll move to the vote. We're voting on Mr. Bickford's motion, Mr. Stauffer's second, for approval of the second amendment to naming rights agreement by and between the Board of Education of Washington County and the Barbara Ingram School for the Arts Foundation, Inc. All those in favor? Okay, we have 7 affirmative votes, and the student member concurs. Motion carries. Thank you. And we have another request from the Barbara Ingram School for the Arts Foundation, Inc. for another naming rights approval. Is that correct, Mrs. Ram?
That is correct. Now that the board has approved the second amendment to the agreement, this is a request to have the board's approval of the naming right at this time for a collaboration area.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
President Williams, I move to approve the naming rights for Practice Room 2 on the 2nd level of the Barbara Ingram School for the Arts building as requested by the Barbara Ingram School for the Arts Foundation, Incorporated.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Heard you. Any discussion? Any questions for Mrs. Ram? Okay, then we'll move to the vote. We're voting on Mrs. Murray's motion, Dr. Zentmeyer's second, for approval of the naming right for Practice Room 2 on the 2nd level of the Barbara Ingram School for the Arts building as requested by the Barbara Ingram School for the Arts Foundation, Inc. All those in favor? Okay, we have 7 votes, and the student member concurs. Motion carries. Thank you, Mrs. Ram. All right, our 5th and final item under consideration this evening is the 2022-2023 Middle and High School Program of Studies with Dr. Gary Willow, Associate Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction.
Good
Hello
evening.
again.
Good evening again, board members, Dr. Michael. I wanted to take this opportunity to give a little bit of an update on our program of studies for high school and middle school. Let's start with graduation requirements. The state requires 22 credits in order to graduate. A credit is defined as a student that completes the course, and they earn a credit. So at high school, we earn credits. At middle school, we pass courses. In this case, we have 24. There are 2 in red that I'm going to talk about a little bit later on in the presentation, Health Life Skills and the Technology Education credit, because these requirements have changed slightly. With any graduation requirement, we have completers. In most cases, we have completers that fall under 2 umbrellas. One is the University of Maryland. The other is our CTE completers, which anybody that's looked at our program of studies can see the number of different CTE completers we have. The University of Maryland completer is set by the actual University of Maryland system, and it requires 4 years of math, including a minimum of Algebra 2, and 2 years of a foreign language. That is the minimum, and in often cases, our students that are University of Maryland will go far beyond that requirement. Our CTE pathways are clusters that range from 3 credits up to 12 credits. In most cases, when you see 8, 12 credits, we're talking about specialty programs at Tech High School. Most of our CTE CTE programs in our comprehensive schools are 3 or 4 credits. I wanted to take a minute to update everyone on high school assessments. So prior to COVID, if we went back to the 1920 school year, in Comar, graduation requirements were passing Algebra 1, Government, English 10, and Msde Science, meaning that you had to, at the end of each of those courses, pass the assessment in order to graduate. When COVID happened, the state, Msde, applied waivers for the 2021 and the 21-22 school years. And the waiver is that when a student has met the graduation requirement if they pass the course and take the assessment. The big change comes for next year. Beginning in the 22-23 school year, the state did not go back to a graduation requirement for assessments. Instead, it is 20% of the final grade. So what we look at with that is really 4 marking periods of 20% and then the final exam at 20%. So the final exam, or in this case, the MCAP assessment, is what I should be using, is the 20% mark. And that's important because several of our students, as we go into this exam, as we look at these new assessments, we want to make sure that they're prepared and that they're able to do well on these assessments, not just because it's an assessment, but because of the value of the learning that's tied to it. And we want to make sure that our students are well prepared for those. So we've already started to implement some of those changes, but this program of studies, which our parents will see, is actually where it actually is all now outlined. I do want to take a moment to highlight some of the great partnerships that have been forged under Dr. Michael's leadership with Hagerstown Community College. We have a multitude of dual credit opportunities offered at all of our high schools. Dual credit means that the student has the opportunity to earn a WCPS credit and a Hagerstown Community College credit at their comprehensive high school. These are classes that are offered during the day at our high schools. They are taught by WCPS staff. I want to say the past 2, 3, 4 years, we have greatly expanded these dual credit opportunities. They do not replace AP classes, they enhance those experiences. So our students now have the opportunity to earn college credits through AP and through these dual credit opportunities. The other thing that we're very proud of is our partnership, again, with HCC on the articulation agreement. The articulation agreement is when a student graduates from WCPS and has taken certain classes at WCPS, they take their transcript to HCC and they can get HCC credit for the classes that they've taken here. So it's a little bit different than dual. Dual, I earn the credit while I'm attending. Articulation are the credits that come after graduation if a student chooses to enroll at Hagerstown Community College. And again, we're now up to 31 different courses that are outlined in that agreement. Health education. The state has expanded the health education curriculum, and instead of it being a half year, it is now a full year. All right, so it is a 180-day scope and sequence. So for us, health education, which still includes our financial literacy component that we've had built into that for years, how to buy a house, how to buy a car, how to invest, that is still part of our health life curriculum, our financial literacy. That will all stay, but instead of it being a traditional semester course, it will be a year-long course that will begin next year. A couple things that I'd like to highlight are Cte program updates. If you remember back at the beginning of the presentation, I had Foundations of Technology in red. So in the past, a student that wanted to participate in the computer science completer would take Foundations of Computer Science, the 2 AP classes, and the robotics class. The state would not allow a student to double dip. And what I mean by that is, if they took that Foundations of Computer Science, they couldn't count it as a graduation requirement. So we worked with Msde, and this pathway actually removes the Foundations course from the completer, but the student can take that Foundations course and now count it as a graduation requirement, and then go into the completer for computer science. That's a huge benefit to our students that have an interest in the computer science program, because now you wouldn't have to take the FOT, the Foundations of Technology course. You could take this computer science program. So we're very pleased that the state accepted our application, and again, we think many other systems will follow us on that. The other one that is expanding is the early childhood program. This will now have a 4th class, which will be a dual credit opportunity for students. As we know, Blueprint is fundamentally changing 3- and 4-year-old education in the state of Maryland. And there is going to be a high need of both teachers and paraprofessionals to work in not just our pre-K programs, but also at the private daycare programs throughout our county. So this update actually aligns us more with what's happening in Blueprint, and will better prepare our students to enter the workforce when they graduate. A couple other things that we're very proud of. Officially yesterday, we got approval from Msde on the new diesel technology program at Washington County Technical High School. I think the excitement for me with this has been working with our local businesses, Cody Pine, Wendy Moore, Steve Garland, myself. The business community is very, very excited for this. They've been coming to our PAC meetings. We do not design these courses alone. We take the experts that are out in the field and we backwards map. What would it take for our students to be successful when you hired them after they leave technical high school? And these are the classes that, working with, again, our industry partners, we've created. We are in the process of recruiting, and next year we hope to have our first junior class at technical high school. So again, a wonderful opportunity. Under Dr. Michael's leadership, we have been cutting edge in the Cte programs, and we continue. This is not something that's seen across all states. And I thank you all for your commitment a couple weeks ago when we made that purchase for the trainers and the curriculum materials that were needed for this program. Some other things that we're excited about. We have been working with Hancock Middle Senior High to expand some opportunities. 2 new opportunities that will start up there next year are guaranteed career research development and apprenticeship. These are opportunities that allow students to partner with businesses in the community, earn credits while also working in the community. I have had the opportunity to meet with the mayor and the town manager of Hancock. They're very excited about both of these opportunities. And we continue to explore other opportunities for Hancock, but these are the 2 that are in the program of studies right now. The other thing that, again, is cutting edge, I think, in the sense of not offered at many schools across the state, is the new CDL elective course at Williamsport High School. So what Williamsport will have next year is an opportunity for students to do all of the bookwork that goes with getting your CDL license. And then, with this dual credit partnership with HCC, when they leave us, they'll have the opportunity to go out and complete their hours at HCC, the driving hours. And again, I got to give credit to Dr. Michael, but also the Williamsport High School administrative team that has really worked hard behind the scenes to put this program together. Another great opportunity for our students. And again, the demand that we're hearing from our community. We, WCPS, respond to that by creating these programs because it is a partnership between us and our community businesses and partners that work with us. Now, I spent a lot of time on the high school program of studies, and I'm not trying to slight the middle school program of studies at all, but we did some major updates there last year. So this year was really just a refinement. We really create these documents for our parents and students to be able to read and understand. And when you look through the changes to the middle school, they're not substantial. They're just really redefining what some of those programs are. We add some of the assessment requirements. It's really just meant to be language that's easier for our students and parents to understand our courses. So I don't have anything of major substance to report other than for our students that are in that Algebra 1 course, because we do have students that take Algebra 1 at the middle school, the 20% rule would still apply for them as well.
Colleagues, questions for Dr. Willow? Mr. Stauffer?
I'm interested in several things, but I'll just ask this one question and other colleagues can talk. On high school assessments, the Maryland Comprehensive Assessment is an end-of-course assessment that will count for 20%. How is that decided? Because I remember the old HSAs on government, for example, you got like a score of a 408, a 412, that type of thing. So how is that converted to a grade for determining a percentage grade, because we use percentages, right, for determining the final grade? How's that done?
So that's to be determined at the state level. What we did see on fall assessments was a 100-point scale. So the early fall assessments came back at a 0 to 100. And if they follow that same pathway, it would equate to a grade. But many of our school systems across the state do not always use percentages. They use letter grades. And so we do think that Msde is going to have to provide us with some additional information on how we take this assessment score and average it with the 4 marking period grades.
So we got another year to wait on the state to decide that.
I think we'll probably get some updates here, I think, right after the holiday break. There are several meetings in January and February, but because of the timing of the program of studies and being that it is in Comar now, we felt it was important to add it to next year's program of studies.
Could I jump in with a question about this?
Yeah, that's what I said.
This,
I'll just ask that question first.
With regard to the high school assessment, the change that Mr. Stauffer was just asking about, how do you see that impacting our students and our teachers? The shift from, being a combination of
Sure. Well, I think
two assessments for completion as to incorporating this as
I think
part
from
of
a
the-
staff standpoint, we've always, regardless of your opinion on assessments, they've been around for many years, and they've been high stakes to schools or school systems, and in some cases to our students as a graduation requirement. A student that did not pass these assessments in the past had to take them again, in some cases had to do bridge projects. So they've always been substantial. What we don't know is some of those details that Mr. Stauffer, if I took it a step further. If a student doesn't do well on this assessment, would they have the opportunity to take it again?
Mm-hmm.
If they didn't do well, would there be an opportunity for bridge projects like we've done historically in the past? We don't have those answers yet. We've asked those questions and we anticipate those answers, and we will certainly share more information as it comes, but I don't want to speculate this evening. I do think for our students, again, when you're talking about something that's 20% of your grade, we want our students to always do their best, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we take assessments and we use the results to inform instruction. Otherwise, there's no purpose of giving an actual assessment. So they have to drive instruction, and we always say, do your best. Because if we see what your best is, we're able to actually help through supplemental instruction, tutoring, to meet the individual needs of a student. I think you'll see more students, especially those that might be at that borderline between a grade that, but I don't want to see students get to the point where they're overpressured. I think all those test skills that we talk about, whether it's the SAT, an AP exam, a graduation assessment, college entrance exams, we want to give students the skills that they need to be successful on any of those assessments.
Thank you, Dr. Wallace. Yes, Mr. Evans.
I have two questions. I'm looking on page 16 of the middle school program of studies, the part in red, and I noticed it's for each of the different pathways there. It talks about students entering middle school will be recommended for placement. Then it gives some information on how they go and do that. Could you elaborate on that a little bit? How and who is making these recommendations to go into certain
Sure, and the
pathways?
timing's perfect because we're meeting with principals and counselors to begin that conversation on Thursday. So we pull all of the data from elementary, from any of the assessments that we've given. We include teacher recommendations into that. We look at the standards-based report card, and we share that information with the school principal. This year, ultimately, that recommendation is going to be working with the principal and looking at the different courses that the school offers and making that best choice. Obviously, parent input's in that. We send those schedules home in the summer, and sometimes there's a conversation there. If a parent doesn't agree with that initial placement, they talk with the principal oftentimes at the school level, and in the majority of cases, the issue is resolved. But our Office of Accountability here and our Gifted and Talented Office work specifically to pull that data and share it with principals.
Right, thank you. And I just wanted to make sure that we weren't saying it was a recommendation, making the parents feel like they were being forced into it as well. So that's always a concern.
Those are always, honest conversations. And again, we never want one piece of data to influence the course. And what I often said is when I was a middle school principal is that it's a starting point. It doesn't mean it's the ending point. We have students that shift to different classes, levels of classes throughout their middle and high school careers, if you will.
Very good, thank you.
Yep.
And then the only other question I had, to expand that health ed from a half year to a full year, that's a pretty big jump. I think you said that was a requirement by the state. Do you have any idea of what they're requiring we add into the curriculum?
It's actually just some enhancement. So I know that there's a mental and emotional health, a wellness, a self-awareness, how to deal with stress, anxiety, depression. There's additional substance abuse prevention. There's safety and violence prevention, healthy eating, disease prevention and control, decision-making, goal setting, self-management. We actually just got yesterday the additional 80-plus days of the second part of the course, and we're going through that right now.
Okay, so you haven't actually seen what is required of you?
We saw it, but again, we're at that entry level of just looking at it. When we get standards, what we will do is build curriculum around those standards. So we'll bring a team of teachers together, create that scope and sequence, build those lessons, and go from there.
Excellent. And is that something that gets discussed in curriculum and instruction as well?
Yeah, this is something I expect that we'll bring back to curriculum and instruction. And I also think this is an opportunity. When we've heard speakers that have come here to the board to address concerns with, mental health, I think this is an opportunity. We've talked about the opioid crisis in our county before. We've talked about, several of these topics. They came up again in the census. They come up in our Meredith data that's shared with us, health and wellness. So I'm hoping that this is an opportunity to dive deeper into some of these things and help our students be better prepared for the decisions they have to make in life beyond high school.
Excellent, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Gupta?
I know that you mentioned earlier that so the HCC classes that were offered in schools were equivalent to AB classes. Are those also weighted as 4.0?
So say that one more time. The dual credit classes that
Yes.
were offered during the day are on the accelerated pathway, but not to the advanced of the AP classes. So we have the 3 GPA requirements, if you're looking in your high school program of studies.
Oh, I meant What was it?
So you have the standard, the accelerated quality, and the APIB quality point value. So some of these dual credit classes, if you're asking if they're weighted to the, some of them are weighted to the accelerated quality point value.
So
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, kind of. So are any of them weighted to 4.0?
Some of them are weighted to a 4.0, and part of our process on that is to look at the course, to equate to what the standards are and what course we teach within WCPS, and to weigh it accordingly. So that if you took it as a WCPS course, it would weight the same as a dual credit. And our courses are all outlined. As you go through the program of studies, you can see which of those courses are accelerated, and obviously the APIB fall into their own category.
Okay, and then my other question was the health class that's 1 year now. I know that previously was offered, I believe, in the summer and in the morning. So are those not going to be offered anymore, or how is that going to be adjusted?
We're very fortunate with the summer school schedule that we created last year. There were many opportunities for year-long original credit classes in our English, our math, our science, our social studies. And the presentation we gave last year to the board showed all of the additional hours that we use to support our summer school. We see a very similar model for this year coming up with summer school, and so we would be able to offer those opportunities. Even though it's a year-long course, we can do it with our 2-semester summer school program.
Okay.
Mr. Stauffer?
These dual credit courses, are these courses that we used to include in what we used to call the Essence program, or is that something separate?
So the Essence program, the best way to define that are our students that are leaving early. They might have an early release in there. We call it educational release. They go and they take classes at HCC. That stays on their HCC transcript, but that does not come over to our WCPS transcript because those are HCC professors, and they're not necessarily following our requirements for graduation. But another wonderful opportunity that we provide our students.
And these dual credit opportunities, is the course content decided by the WCPS or jointly with the college? Or
So
does the
that's
college decide it?
Yep,
What?
another great question. That's how we actually come together. We meet with HCC twice a year. I bring the Division of Curriculum. HCC brings all of their curriculum folks. They bring out their program of studies. We talk through our program of studies. And dual credit can only work when they match, when we have similar standards, and we're teaching to that same rigor. In most cases, we're obviously teaching to the college using some of their resources and some of theirs, but also some of our resources are used as well because there is an overlap in those standards. And again, we work with HCC to ensure that our teachers meet their requirements as well. We can't have a dual credit without having a teacher meet the requirements that HCC has in order to keep the integrity of both courses at WCPS and HCC.
Thank you.
I have a question with regard to access, and in particular at the high school level, the specialized programs and the academies. I know that we transport students from their home schools to BISFA and to Tech High. Do we also provide transportation to students to the various academies or specialized programs at the other high schools, such as the Capstone, should a child wish to go to Clear Spring for that program, or any of the other academies?
We have a transportation hub that was designed many years ago, and I think as students need those resources, we use those. We come to South High is where most people try to be transported to, and then we transport from South High to other locations. I think we go south to north and maybe south to Clear Spring right now.
Yeah, we've
I'm
done,
not
we
positive.
IB program, I know, like early buses
So
at some
any
of the schools
interested
that I've
student
been.
would have that.
I don't want to
mode
sit
of
here and guarantee
transportation?
that every program is covered, but to Dr. Michael's point, we look at that on an as-needed basis with the hub and what we're able to provide.
So
Challenge right now is transportation, period. I mean, you heard the people speak at ramps.
I did.
I mean,
I
a
did.
huge part of that is we're running double bus runs.
I heard
And,
that, yes.
That is a challenge for us right now with the hub as well. But we are transporting students. I think it's only a handful of students that are participating.
Right. And again, for access for middle school students, they don't have that same
We,
offering of transportation from a hub to be able to access programs at the middle school level, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? Then we'll move to a motion. I'll entertain a motion for acceptance and approval of these programs of study.
President Williams, I recommend approval for the 2022-23 Middle High Schools Program of Studies.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Is there a second to Dr. Zentmeyer's motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Any discussion? Any questions? I think we covered
Yeah, we
it
did
all,
the
huh?
questions.
Okay, so the vote will be on Dr. Zentmeyer's motion, Mrs. Murray's second, for approval of the 2022-2023 middle and high school programs of study. All those in favor? All right, we have 7 votes, and the student member concurs. Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Willow. We really put you through it, didn't we?
All good questions.
And at this time, we'll move to the superintendent's report. Dr. Michael.
Okay. A number of exciting things happening in Washington County. As Dr. Willow just described, some of our new CTE offerings I think are exciting to hear about for next year. But this week is Computer Science Education Week, December 6th through December 12th. All of us are experiencing computer science in our lives, so almost you can't escape it at this point. And we're very excited to ask Dr. Willow to be joined by Dr. Anders, Steve Garland, Chris Kopko, some folks that we have here to be recognized today for Computer Science Education Week, and also to share some other information.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started with a proclamation that we
Okay.
have for Computer Science Week. So, and with that, then I'm going to introduce my team and step back for a couple minutes.
All right?
So, our proclamation, whereas computer science, an integral part of our society, is changing how people interact with each other and the world around them, transforming industries, driving innovation, and whereas National Computer Science Education Week can inform students, educators, parents, and the general public about the crucial role that computer science plays in shaping our lives. And whereas giving students the chance to participate in high-quality computer science activities exposes them to opportunities and provides critical thinking skills that will serve them throughout their lives. And whereas all students need access to computer science, including access to qualified teachers, technology, and age-appropriate curriculum needed to learn computer science. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that December 6th through 12th, 2021 is observed by Washington County Public Schools as National Computer Science Education Week, presented this 7th day of December 2021. And with that, I'm excited to bring Ann Anders, Steve Garland, and Chris Kopko to the table to give you an update on what WCPS is doing pre-K through 12th grade with computer science.
Good evening, President Williams, Vice President Stauffer, Dr. Michael, and members of the board. This evening, our team would like to share with you our WCPS computer science journey. Our involvement in the Computer Science for All planning process with MSDE has given us an opportunity to work with other districts in the state to examine computer science through the lens of leadership, teacher capacity and development, curriculum material, partnerships, and our community. One of our priorities is to expand access to computer science for all students.
According to Computer Science for All, computer science is the study of computers and all of the phenomena that arise around them. Learning computer science means becoming creators of technology rather than just consumers. This definition helps lead to a common understanding as we look at computer science in our district. In Washington County Public Schools, we use the Maryland Computer Science Standards, which are divided into 5 concepts spanning grades pre-K through 12. These concepts include computing systems, networks and the internet, data analysis, impacts of computing, and algorithms and programming. The sub-concepts break down those overarching concepts and are found embedded within the CS curriculum.
Computer science provides our students with the opportunities to think critically, solve problems, take risks, make mistakes, and learn from them. The goal in WCPS is to make computer science accessible to all students. Computing jobs are the #1 source of new wages in the U.S. with 400,000 current openings. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics has projected that the market for computer science professionals will continue to grow at twice the speed the rest of the labor market between 2014 and 2024. Our work with other districts around the state and Msde has assisted us in developing short and long-term goals. This evening, we will share those goals with you.
One way we support computer science in all classrooms is with the support of our 3 EdTech coaches. These teacher leaders work side by side with teachers in pre-K through 12, planning, co-teaching, and reflecting on computer science integration to expand opportunities for our students beyond library, media, and CTE classes. For example, this week, during Computer Science and Education Week, the EdTech coaches are working in over 40 classrooms with approximately 1,000 students. Students of all ages are coding robots and solving problems with the engineer design process. One of our long-term goals is to continue working with these teachers and expand to other classrooms so teachers see how computer science enhances their instruction, creates problem solvers, and sparks innovation. We have found that the hands-on approach and student engagement with robotics and coding is exciting for teachers and learners.
Additionally, the STEM Connectors Network is a network of STEM leaders from most schools in Washington County who focus on promoting STEM and STEM education in their buildings. The STEM Connectors have traditionally supported the STEM kits in our elementary buildings, which include robotics kits such as Spheros, Ozobots, and WeDos. This year, 6 STEM Connectors have chosen to utilize these resources at their schools as their pathway focus for the 2021-2022 school year. These connectors will focus additionally on promotion and supporting the use of STEM kit materials in their schools this year.
Computer science is offered in some form at every high school in Washington County. The 3-course pathway, as referenced in the Program of Studies presentation, is the most common. The International Baccalaureate Computer Science program is offered at North Hagerstown High School. The International Baccalaureate program has specific higher-level course requirements in all content areas that students need to be enrolled in order to graduate with an International Baccalaureate diploma. These computer science classes require more writing, reflection, and a larger focus on the global citizenship. The Project Lead the Way Computer Science pathway is a 4-course pathway currently being taught at Williamsport High School. Williamsport High School is the Academy of Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math, with other Project Lead the Way pathways available for all students. The program's interdisciplinary work with the other Project Lead the Way pathway content areas engage students in compelling, real-world challenges. All students work together to design solutions. They learn computational thinking, not just how to code. They become better thinkers, communicators, and creators. Currently at all middle schools, we offer Tech Ed in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade and the Foundation of Technology. The Foundations of Computer Science course at the middle school level will provide an introduction to computer science pathway at the high school. In order to prepare all students for our high school pathways, we are now working with our CTE teachers and curriculum team to build a computer science module in Tech Ed classes and the Foundation of Technology. This will provide all middle school students with computer science opportunities in their CTE courses. These courses will prepare students to enter our high school computer science pathways if they are interested.
In looking at our elementary schools, our integration of computer science standards has primarily been in library media curriculum. We begin with computational thinking skills, which is a process of breaking problems down into steps using reasoning and problem solving. Our library media curriculum writing team began writing one module to integrate computer science, and over this past summer, the work expanded. The library media specialist used the computer science standards to develop 8 core standards that are infused into every module of the library curriculum. As part of this process, the team worked with our CTE teachers to align instruction to the new middle school Foundations of Computer Science course. In our library media program, we also enhance our computer science instruction with literary connections. Students in the elementary and middle school also have an ebook collection of project-based learning books that spark hands-on building and problem solving. With the goal for all students to have access to computer science, we are able to begin this as WCPS students enter elementary school through our library media program.
We also provide opportunities for computer science through our robotics clubs across the district. VEX V5 competitions are available for students to join at 6 high schools around Washington County with interest at various other high schools for future teams. There are also 4 standalone teams at the middle school level. These teams compete in various local and regional tournaments as a part of their competition season, with the potential to move on to bigger competitions based on qualifications earned through local competitions. Additionally, there are now 3 elementary schools that are fielding local competitions, are fielding VEX IQ robotics teams. These teams will participate in a local tournament in Washington County this year, with the goal of participating in tournaments outside of Washington County starting in the 2022-2023 school year. Of particular note is the South Hagerstown High School team, which has consistently been one of the top clubs in the region, and you can see some of their accomplishments up there. Additional opportunities. We have additional computer science opportunities that span pre-K through 12. Our elementary Sphero one-to-one take-home kits were developed during the pandemic as a way for students to have access to robots and coding at home. Most recently, through the ARC grant, we were able to provide 20 Sphero kits to classroom teachers, expanding our computer science work beyond library media programs and CTE. Teachers were provided with professional development, worked side by side with an ed tech coach to plan a lesson, and then shared their lesson within the cohort to determine next steps. Also, through the ARC grant, we purchased additional 3D printers for library media centers and CTE classes. Every library media center in WCPS has at least one 3D printer. In the spring of 2021, we have had numerous WCPS teachers receive 3D MakerBot certifications. This fall, we have 5 elementary and middle schools that have registered teams with Girls Who Code. Many other schools who use the Girls Who Code resources as part of other robotics programs. There are multiple schools interested in hosting clubs in the spring, so we're planning a January professional development session to welcome new clubs and leaders. We hope to expand Girls Who Code to other schools.
In conclusion, we would like to thank our WCPS teachers who are providing computer science opportunities to their students. To our library media specialists, CTE teachers, VEX leaders, Girls Who Code facilitators, and other teachers, we thank you. Thank you, Dr. Michael, for your leadership and vision in computer science in Washington County Public Schools. Our goal is for students in WCPS to have greater access to computer science in order to better prepare them to be problem solvers in the future. At this time, we would like to share a brief video to highlight computer science in our schools.
Coding is so good for children. People don't realize the benefits that they can get. It teaches sequencing, it teaches collaboration, it teaches kids who are always trying to be perfect that it's okay not to be perfect.
It gets your mind thinking, and it's not like something very easy. It's really hard to do, so you have to put everything that you have in to build it.
The thing I love to see the most is their collaboration skills, because they lost a lot of that in the recent years that we've had. When you see them collaborating the way that they do with the robotics, it really shows how important coding is for kids to be successful in school today.
At first we did it like separate, and then we could connect it if the other person that you asked wanted to connect it as well.
We had to code it the same way, the same way together, or the code would not work.
Learning is a process, and it's not something that just ends in one day.
And it's so great to see how well they embrace it, and they don't realize how much they're learning because they're having so much fun.
Miss Rubish has really fun challenges and codes for us to do. The most fun thing is probably, I'd say, figure out how to do certain codes.
I will often have students ask me the cost because they want to go home and get one on their own. And I know at the end of the day that if students are asking, how can I access these materials, then I must be doing something right. I feel very fortunate that we have access to so many of these coding tools available in our library.
When my kids are coding and I see their successes, it just makes me feel so proud of them because those little accomplishments mean so much right now. They need to keep taking those steps forward. So when they light up, I light up.
Well, thank you, team, for putting that all together. Board members, I don't think even the video can completely capture all that's happening by all of our staff out in Washington County Public Schools. Certainly thank our CTE staff members, our library media people, Chris, the science team, just people across our entire system that have a passion for computer science. So we're excited about the Computer Science Week, but I'm more excited about all the coding opportunities that we have for our students. I kind of expect it in middle school, and high school just completely blows me away with the technology that we have at a high school level. You'd expect something at a college or something. But what really fascinates me a lot of times is what I see at elementary. You know, pre-K students, K students, and they're figuring out how to go, maybe for lack of any other term, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but in a positive way. They're coding their robots to do these various things at really young ages. And I just think it's really exciting. So I'm so proud of the team, the efforts, the grants that we've been able to secure over the years. Our 3 people that work under Ann, the support team that we have, and we're going to continue to spread coding and computer science throughout Washington County. So again, thank you to this team, and thank you to all of our team members and people that help support our coding and computer science efforts. So thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next presentation, board members, I wanted to make sure you had an update on our school counseling and mental health efforts. We put an extensive amount of effort into this over the last number of years. We recognize, even pre-COVID, that we were having challenges with some of our students and some of their home lives and some of the things that they were encountering. And we've made a concerted effort, you as a board have made a concerted effort to invest in counseling and mental health efforts. And tonight I just ask that Helen Huffer and Dr. Pasculi come forward and just give us a brief update on our counseling efforts, our partnerships, and mental health. So with that, turn it over to Ms. Huffer.
Good evening, Dr. Michael and members of the board. I'm Helen Huffer, Supervisor of School Counseling, and with me is Dr. Shannon Pasculi, Coordinator of Mental Health Services. We're presenting on school counseling and mental health updates.
Can you speak into the mic just a little bit further?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
We're going to be sharing the collaboration. Sorry. Are we good? Yes, thank you, sorry.
Right up to you.
Yes.
Just pull right up to
We
you.
are sharing the collaboration on these components of student services to meet the needs of all students. As you can understand, students have returned to in-person learning different than prior to the pandemic. Our efforts are to address the student needs at school and through community resources. You'll see a triangle here. These are typical supports in place for students. On Tier 1, these are supports for all students, like classroom lessons. In Tier 2 are additional supports for specific students, like small groups and social work services. In Tier 3 is programming and additional specified supports for specific students. This was prior to the pandemic. Currently, we have shifted to more of the top Tier 2 supports since our return to school. So with the board-supported additional staffing in our schools within the school counseling department and in collaboration with others, we are hoping to see a shift back to the typical supports needed for students. The additional counselors have decreased our student-to-counselor ratio, and you'll see the 13 community school counselors are not part of that ratio, as they coordinate supports for the entire school community, and their focus is not on individual students. We have PBIS, Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports programs in 24 of our schools currently. Classroom lessons are based on school and student needs, and these are some of the topics covered for all students at our schools. Some restorative approaches include PBIS, conflict resolution, and mediation. Our student assistance program is at all secondary schools to address substance abuse. And we collaborate with community agencies to support students as well. Students, staff, and families have access to a school counselor at every school, and social workers are at several schools across the county. They provide supports for all students and can help with community resource referrals.
Thanks to the support of the board, we have also added additional positions dedicated directly to mental and behavioral health needs to support our students, including a single point of contact for our in-house mental health services through WCPS staff, as well as our connections with community partners to support mental health outside of the system. We also have 40 staff members who have been established to support elementary behavior challenges, and a specialist position to support the clinical needs of our students who are receiving therapeutic services by WCPS staff. Our Tier 2 mental health services within the system provide additional efforts and support to our higher needs students. We have processes in place to monitor all referrals that are made by WCPS staff for students to access mental health services, and that allows us to ensure that there are no barriers, either on the parents' part, families, students, to these services being provided. We also have systematic processes in place that ensure we are addressing threats, suicide, and behavior challenges among students. We've put a significant amount of effort into growing our partnerships with community providers who are working in our schools and working with students outside of the schools as well. The mental health coordination position has allowed us to improve our communication and expand our partnerships to WCPS providers. Some of these expanded partnerships are listed here, but they cover things such as free of charge mental health services for any student in the system, transportation free of charge for families who cannot access mental health services outside of the school system, as well as access to specific services such as supporting our EL students through bilingual providers, as well as substance abuse counseling. We've also worked significantly to expand the professional development available to our staff across the entire system related to mental health services. Since the fall of 2019, we've put significant effort into increasing our options, our access, and the opportunities for any staff member in the entire system to reach out to mental health service professional development. We have partner training as well as in-house improvements in terms of our own train-the-trainer model for WCPS in-house capacity. Since the fall of 2019, more than 800 staff members have received mental health professional development. Listed are just some of the specific mental health trainings that have been made available to our staff. They're offered on an ongoing, regular, and rotating basis multiple times throughout the school year at different times of day to support our schools who have different end-of-day times. They're also offered multiple opportunities for virtual as well as previously in-person learning. We hope to return to that when the opportunity arises. Ultimately, the target of this opportunity is for supporting student mental health, but also for staff to support their own mental health.
Please continue to talk with your children daily and assist in limiting their time on social media. Together, we can support students in Washington County Public Schools through parent, staff, and community collaboration. Please reach out to the school if you see a need with your student. We are here to support all students. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen and Shannon. Probably there's a long list of topics on those slides that we could spend an hour on in each. But tonight, I just really wanted to give you a little update on the efforts that we are doing in Washington County. I thank the leadership of Shannon, Helen, and Mr. Jacoby's here tonight, Director of Student Services, and does an excellent job at trying to coordinate things. We recognize that COVID has been a challenge, but we also recognize our student population has been changing over the last number of years, and we're trying to get in front of that and address that the very best we can. So we appreciate the board's support. I appreciate the leadership of the team here tonight and of all of our staff members who work in these critical areas. And we'll have future reports under superintendent's reports in the near future. And if you have any specific topics that you would like to hear more about, please let somebody on the agenda planning team know, and we'll be glad to bring those forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next report is kindergarten readiness update. A lot of times we don't get this till after the first of the year, and we just received this information the last week. When I initially looked at it, I was expecting, significant drop or some type of dramatic negative change out of our kindergarten readiness. I am very pleased to report that we're going to hear in a few minutes, better than I expected, and all credit to our team and our staff. So, Dr. Willow?
Good evening, President Williams, Dr. Michael, elected board members. Dr. Willow and I are going to share kindergarten readiness updates with you this evening. So first off, the kindergarten readiness assessment is often referred to as the KRA. So when you hear that term, that stands for Kindergarten Readiness Assessment. It is an assessment that the state of Maryland uses to assess all of our incoming students to see how they are demonstrating readiness with all of that. So here in Washington County, we assess all of our kindergarten students. It provides us with baseline data on our students. So right from the get-go, teachers know what are next steps. How can I differentiate instruction? What can I do to meet their needs? In addition, it also provides stakeholders in our county to know how are our programs, how are they doing? How are centers doing? How are providers doing? How are they preparing them for kindergarten? So as you can see, the assessment itself has 4 different domains that the students are assessed on. Not only are they assessing the language and literacy and math, but they're looking at the whole child. They're looking at their social emotional aspects. How are they doing physical well-being and motor development? So it's kind of the whole child through that assessment. It's based off of looking at direct performance questions and then observables as well. And then they'll receive an overall score to determine if they are demonstrating, approaching, or emerging. So Dr. Willow is going to share some of our data now.
So a couple things that I want to highlight. First, to the highest category that a student can, or highest score that a student can score, is that demonstrating readiness. So what I'm bringing in first is the Maryland trend for, again, this highest category of demonstrating readiness. And you can see Maryland back in 2016 was 43%. Recently, the state average dropped, and in some counties, we saw double-digit drops. That it was to be expected with the pandemic interrupting pre-K. For us, a slightly different story. We started in 2016, and honestly, I could go back further in 2015, and our KRA data was even lower. At one point, we were 23rd in the state. Under Dr. Michael's leadership and this board, you made kindergarten, pre-kindergarten a priority. I think some people think that what we're doing in Washington County is the norm across the state. It is not. Blueprint will make it a norm at some point, but full day kindergarten, or pre-K, excuse me, full day pre-kindergarten that is free and available to all students is not the norm. And what we're proud of here is, yes, we went back a little bit, but in a year of a pandemic where our students were learning for portions of the year through Zoom, pre-K on Zoom, our teachers, our parents, our community members responded, and for the first time, we are above the state average. So I shared in 2019, the Maryland average was 47%, and our county was 44th, which put us 17th in the state. Again, if we went back further, you would see we were as low as 23rd at one point. This year, we're 9th in the state. Now again, some might celebrate, well, some might suggest that we're celebrating that the rest of the state went down. As always, we dig a little deeper at the data to find the real meaning of the story. So I want to take you to the last slide here on pre-K participation. And I want to introduce what you're looking at here. So there's 3 categories that Ms. Longerbeam shared earlier. There's the demonstrating category, the approaching category, and the emerging. So if I took a look at all of our kindergarten students and I put them into these 3 categories, I would see that 41.6% of our kindergarten students were in that demonstrating. We took it to the 10th. 34.5 in the approaching and 24% in the emerging. We wanted to see how did WCPS pre-K students perform. Because remember, in kindergarten, we assess all students at the beginning of kindergarten, whether they came from WCPS pre-K, whether they came from home care, whether they came from a daycare provider in the community, everyone is assessed, and we use that data to respond accordingly. So when we look at how WCPS pre-K students performed, 54.3% of our pre-K students that were in pre-K last year hit the highest category. The next category, that 30.1, is the approaching. So again, 84, almost 85% of our students that attended a WCPS pre-K are in those top two categories. We still have work to do. Well, the job is never done, as our goal is to ensure that every student has the skills to be successful. And we know that foundational skills are so important for our students when they come in, because we know that once they fall behind in elementary, it becomes harder and harder to catch a student up. But if I end with our students that were not in a WCPS pre-K program, there we go, we can see that those percentages were much higher. Again, I think if we would go back and we looked at this data when we were 23rd, and we saw in the state, and we saw those low numbers, this board's vision, Dr. Michael's vision, our pre-K program is making a difference in the lives of students. What I'm excited about is last year, we had a little bit of a dip. We went to about 780 students in pre-K. This year, I think as of today, we were at 1,052 pre-K students. So our enrollment has rebounded nicely in pre-K, and we're back, and we're in person. And we got 180 days of hopefully in-person learning, right? So we're really excited. I do have to say some thank yous. One, to our teachers who did a phenomenal job, and our paraprofessionals. Again, having young children of my own, I know the challenge of keeping them occupied in person. Imagine having 10, 15, 20 on a Zoom and still working. And again, fantastic job. Our administrators who were right there with our teachers working through those challenges, our parents, our grandparents, our aunts, our uncles, they were in on those Zoom sessions. For the first time, I think one benefit, if there's any benefit to this, was it increased the collaboration between our educators and our parents who were there on those Zooms, listening in, working with their kid from home. I also want to thank our daycare providers, because many of them came to our WCPS sessions at the beginning of the year. We had that pre-K on a Saturday where we invited all of our sessions in. The YMCA, all those big programs made sure our students were logged on every day. And they helped make these scores a possibility or a reality. And then finally, one last thank you to you all. You prioritized pre-K, and I think the results are starting to pay off, and I think that we're going to build off of this momentum, and we're going to see continued success. So we're very proud, again, of our students, and we were grateful for the opportunity to come share what we think is really good news with the board tonight.
Well, thank you for sharing. Our pre-K team, our kindergarten team, again, I think just did an amazing job. And to those other people that Dr. Willow mentioned, I think parents were more involved than ever if they were involved virtually with us on in our pre-K program. We also, if you recall, I guess it was called Stage 2, we prioritized bringing pre-K and kindergarten back. So pre-K was one of the very first groups that came back in the fall, was back in the fall and back in the spring. So we made a priority to see those children in person. We know that Zoom is not the very best effort in that. Also, I know a lot of our pre-K teachers worked individually with students on Zoom, not just in a full class, and I think that could have made some difference as well. So thank you for our report tonight. I appreciate it. Just a couple more things here, board members. We want to recognize the Williamsport Volleyball state champions. I'm going to ask Eric Michael to come forward at this time. Normally, we would have the whole team in, their parents and everybody. We weren't sure what the capacity would be here tonight. So we're going to celebrate them here just a little bit virtually, a little bit different. Hopefully in the near future, we'll be celebrating future state teams in person. Mr. Michael?
Put my glasses on. Good evening. It's my pleasure to introduce our state championship Williamsport volleyball team. I'm going to start and do the roster and the coaches and then talk a little bit about the team as I finish. As I'm reading these names, they're not according to the picture, they're according to the numerical order. Grace Caudell, Reagan Morris, Emily Henley, Chevelle Cruz, Jenna Murray, Berkeley Simmons, Amber Kager-Rice, Mackenzie Pryor, Chelsea Krebs, Caitlin Files, Allie Foltz, Everly Harsh, Rachel Wooster, and Ava Klein. Team manager is Casey Byers, and the coaches are head coach Karen Hampton and assistant coaches Britt Renner and Sammy Raitt. So a little bit about the team. They defeated Mountain Ridge 3-0 in the state championship for 1A state championship. There are a lot of signs. This was Williamsport High School's 16th state championship. So there's a lot of Sweet 16 signs down being held up. One of the coolest things ever, if you ever go to a state championship, particularly volleyball, they stand there as they introduce the teams and read the years that they've been state champion. And it's a long list and there's a lot of cheering going on when their names are read, or excuse me, those years are read. The 16th championship does put Williamsport as the winningest volleyball team in the state right now, the state championship. So it's quite a feat. And I think they're like 2 ahead of everybody else. So we congratulate them on this. It was a great year for them. And we do emphasize with our athletic programs, they're student athletes, students first. And it's my pleasure to announce that this team has a team GPA of 3.678. So they're good also in the classroom. Thank you.
Michael, we did want to just have that opportunity to recognize the success of our athletes and certainly their academic success as well. The last item I have for tonight, I just want to share a fly through the new diesel program. So when we hire the architect and they do all the architectural drawings and all the things for design of new buildings, there's technology available now that can flip that into a 3D rendering, and the company did that for us. I just wanted to share that tonight. On December 21st, if all goes well, the board will be voting on a contractor for the new diesel building and the renovations at Tech High. And I just find all this very exciting as we continue to move opportunities forward for our students, which is what our effort's all about. So with that, we'll roll that video, and that'll complete my report tonight, Ms. Williams.
Thank you.
Washington County Public Schools is excited to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Washington County Technical High School in 2022 with the addition of a new program and major upgrades to some current programs. New to the campus, a building that will house the Diesel Technology Program to support the growing diesel industry here in Washington County. The new Diesel Technology Building will mimic current industry facilities and will give students a state-of-the-art space to learn about diesel systems. Inside, it will house more than 30 specialized training devices, as well as heavy lifts, modern equipment, and tooling. More than $1 million has already been invested in these learning tools. A modern classroom area will complement the shop and provide dedicated space for discussions. Washington County Technical High School is also renovating 4 of its trade areas, including the collision repair area, which will see a new, larger capacity, state-of-the-art paint booth, among other upgrades. This expansion will give students the opportunity to learn in an environment which models current industry trends. The Automotive Technology Program will be moved to a significantly larger space and include equipment to teach students about autonomous, hybrid, and alternative energy vehicles. A classroom is provided in the back of the shop, just like in the diesel building. The carpentry program will be transitioning into a building systems trade program to include basic heating, ventilating, and air conditioning systems, along with plumbing in its curriculum. The renovated electrical construction space will house a simulator to allow students the opportunity to learn current industry practices in a real-life setting. As we prepare to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Washington County Technical High School, WCPS can't wait to make these enhanced learning opportunities available to students in the fall of 2022, providing experiences they will encounter in their careers and preparing them for the future.
Wow. 50 years.
It's hard to believe.
Wow.
Hard to believe.
Wow. Okay, thank you, Dr. Michael, for your reports and for your update. We'll move now to personnel action with Dr. Pugh.
Good evening, President Williams, members of the board, Dr. Michael. As discussed earlier today in closed session, there are a number of personnel actions for your consideration, and at this time I ask for your approval of personnel actions.
Is there a motion?
Williams, I move to approve the personnel actions dated Tuesday, December 7th, 2021, as presented in closed session.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Are there any questions? Okay, then we're voting to approve the personnel actions discussed earlier today in closed session. All those in favor? Okay, we have 7 affirmative votes and the motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Pugh.
Thank you.
Okay, under miscellaneous business this evening, we have for your consideration some, oops, I skipped ahead. I'm sorry. Got ahead of myself. Let's go back and do the reports to the board. We'll do the board member committee reports, and then we'll do future agenda items. Dr. Zutmeyer, would you like to begin down there with curriculum and instruction?
C and I met and we talked about the program of studies, which was so well presented tonight. I need not add anything else. Our next meeting is in January.
Okay, thank you. Facilities committee?
I'm sorry. Thank you. We have not met, and we don't plan to meet until January. So that date has not been determined at this time. Probably at the next meeting, I'll have a date for January.
Thank you. Finance, Mr. Evans?
Yeah, we just met this past, I believe, Thursday, and got a financial report update and talked about some grants. And our next meeting will be at the end of January next year.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Mr. Bickford, policy and review?
Policy and review meeting next Tuesday, December 14th at 11:30 here in the auditorium.
HR will meet the second Tuesday in January, which I believe is the 11th, at 4 p.m. here at the CES.
Thank you. Mr. Gupta, did you have anything that you wanted to report with regard to student government?
Association of Student Councils had its first Board of Student Leaders meeting in person for the first time in a year and a half now, and it was really great to see everybody back in person, and we talked about our plans for this coming year.
Thank you. As part of the board's reorganization, we do reorganize our standing committees. So if you would please let me know, members, your choices of standing committees. We need 3 members on each of those committees. And 5 of us, Mr. Stauffer and I, do not chair a committee, so if you would let me know your choices of committee, if you would rank them in priority, and if you're interested in chairing a committee, please let me know that. And I would like to have that information via email as soon as possible, because we will be voting on the slate when we're back after the holidays at our first meeting on January 4th. So in order for staff to be able to prepare all the documentation before they leave for the holidays. So if you could make your considerations and let me know, I would appreciate that very much.
On NABE.
Absolutely.
The Maryland Association of Boards of Education Legislative Committee will meet Monday morning at 10 o'clock, and it generally lasts 2 hours. So we'll see what updates are from Maeve about the upcoming legislative session, which begins in Annapolis in January 12th, 13th, somewhere in there. As I've said many times through the years, I'm glad they only meet 90 days a year, but we'll see what comes out of it this time.
And now to miscellaneous business and your consideration of future agenda items. Coming up at our next meeting, before our next meeting, we have a work session where we will have presented to us the superintendent's draft fiscal year 2023 budget. So that's the work session coming up. At our first meeting in January, we will have a presentation under the superintendent's report on the literacy tutoring program. And then at our second meeting in January, the math tutoring program. Also on January 18th, we'll have with us Mrs. Cade, who will give us the first legislative briefing of the year. And on February 1st, we have a report on the apprenticeship program. So that's what we have up and coming. If you have other requests or suggestions for agenda items, please let a member of the Agenda Planning Committee know so that we can get those on a future agenda. That brings us to board member comments. Mr. Gupta, would you like to begin down there?
Sure. These last 2 weeks have been very eventful. I have had the I've been able to visit 3 high schools, Boonesboro, Smithsburg, and Barbara Ingram. At Barbara Ingram, I actually spoke at their all-school assembly in front of 300 students, and that was a wonderful experience. But it's always great talking to students across the county, talking to their concerns. And I love visiting schools. It's probably one of the favorite parts of my job. Being able to talk to students all the way from freshmen, talking to teachers, talking to student council advisors, talking to administrators, talking to principals, touring schools. It's always great. Thank you.
I just want to thank all the teachers that came out tonight. I know they had to leave because they have to get up early and teach students, but their comments are always welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Bickford?
Nothing for me.
Okay, thank you. Let's jump down to the other end. Dr. Zentmeyer.
Thanks so much to Dr. Landers and her team for the awesome robotics display in the hallway. It was just enormously cool. And good luck to Coach Custer and his South High robotics team on their upcoming competition. And of course, having served as assistant principal at Williamsport, I have to say congratulations to the Williamsport volleyball team.
Thank you, Dr. Zentmeyer. Mr. Evans.
Yeah, about 80 years ago and 12 minutes ago, or 12 hours ago, we had one of the most important events in our history happen with Pearl Harbor. So, you know, that really changed the way our country has been shaped. And I know there's a lot of times there's an awful lot to complain about, but we also have an awful lot, especially this time of year, to be thankful about. So thank you for all the people that have served us in the past. Thank you for all of our first responders, everyone that helps to keep us safe and allows us to be able to have these headaches rather than other headaches. So thank you to all that help us out.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Mr. Gesser?
Thank you. I just have some thoughts from the last meeting that we had, and a real simple question concerning bullying. Do we do anything in our schools assembly-wise? We talk about anti-bullying programs. Is there anything like that goes on right now?
Can't respond as far as the school-wide assembly. We have bullying lessons that are taught by the counselors at various grade levels. That's certainly a report that we can come back and share, you know, what we do with anti-bullying things. As Ms. Huffer and Dr. Pisculi, you know, enumerated, you know, character counts and PBIS and all those things are all efforts to try to encourage great behavior, positive behavior. Restorative justice, all those things are all part of the bullying efforts, anti-bullying efforts that we go through.
Well, you know, I'm always trying to think of ways to make things better for everybody. And I've been really struggling with this one because I know that we all have concerns, and I was thinking about how could we have an impact on our students, and I was wondering if our student rep could be a leader by going back to all of your leaders in your schools and pulling your athletic leaders, your club leaders, and building a program within the student body that would help us with an anti-bullying program. And that way it would come from peers and not from an adult talking down to a child, but another student would be saying, hey, we got to do this. And working together to take back our schools, as a group, and you have size and numbers to maybe do anti-bullying pledges, having an assembly, have somebody come in and talk about it that's had an issue. I think that impact might be a little bit better coming from students, within their school. And if we can at least start a dialogue and a student dialogue, I'm not sure how that would work, but I'm always just trying to come up with ideas, and I think the best way is having students come up with ways to make that better for themselves. When we self-police ourselves, I think we become better citizens, and I think, if Mr. Gupta was in my class and he was come to me and said, hey, Mike, we would like to have, the leaders of our school get together to come up with ways to help us out. And then every school has that, program. It's just a step that we need to start. And I know that it takes a community to do this, and it takes, if we can reach one person at a time, I think we become a better student population. And to do nothing, I just think at this time we really need to focus on some ways. And I thought, maybe our student government could be, a partner in something like that.
Absolutely. I have no objection to that. Be glad to work with Mr. Gupta and any of the SGA leadership to talk about that. I mean, one of our challenges that frequently, kind of is the impetus of the start of bullying sometimes is social media. And that's I won't say a new phenomenon, but in the last 10 years, it's really changed substantially.
But coming from a student,
absolutely, that
it
would be helpful.
Than a
Since that's
teacher.
their whole life, that's what they know. so.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. So I just wanted to say that. I would like to thank, I haven't been here for some endings. So the football referees and all referees that have been out there that work very hard. I know football very much because I had some dealings with them. They used to come to the restaurant after their football games. So I got to know a lot of them, but there's a lot of referees out there. I know we lost a major referee, Coach Lang, I think, passed away. He was a part of that. So many of those give their time way beyond the money that they put into. Stan can speak with that, but we never thank them enough because they aren't, they're not appreciated as much as they should be. So I would just like to say thank you to all of our referees that coach or to referee games, our basketballs, volleyball, football, and everything in between, and all year long. So thank you to all of those folks. So that's all I have tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Stauffer.
Well, there are a lot of things I'd like to comment on, but I won't. But in one of my visits to one of the schools, I talked to a teacher who'd been teaching 19 years. It was Bester Elementary. She taught kindergarten. She's very devoted to that school. She said a lot of teachers ask her, why don't you leave that school? And she said, because I love it and I love the kids here. And she related to me a story from about 2 years ago to just focus on some of the lives that these children have that are in our schools today and so forth. There was a young man in our class. I don't remember all the specifics, but I remember the big details. And there was a point where he wasn't in school for like 3, 4, 5 days. I forget how many she said. So finally, somehow, someone decided to get the police to perform a wellness check. The young man lived with his father. I'm not sure the mother was involved in the life too much and so forth. apparently when the police got into the building, the apartment where they lived, the father was dead. She wasn't sure of how he had died or anything. And the young boy was curled up, I'm going to cry, was curled up against him in a fetal position and told the authorities that he hadn't had anything to eat, that he'd been eating out of the garbage can and all this type of thing. So, you know, schools are asked to deal with things that the original innovators of public schools didn't envision that it would come. And where do some of these things come? Well, for example, the community school program. We won't go into that, but that's an interesting topic that maybe we should talk about one night here, a presentation. But where do these extra duties come from? They come from politicians in the federal and state government who say, the school ought to handle this, the school ought to do this, the school should do this, and so forth. And it adds to the burden and so forth. And I'm a strong public school advocate, and always have been, always will be. My parents were 8th grade educated, but they were literate, they were intelligent, they weren't formally educated, and they always stressed do your best in school and so forth. And some of the things we've seen here tonight are the good points about WCPS. Is it a perfect system? No, there is no perfect system. But this board, this superintendent, all the 3,000 employees work very hard to every day and have for years to do their very best. So I'll get off my soapbox now.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. I'm going to hold my comments for this evening. Thank my colleagues, Superintendent Michael and staff, for great meetings today, and to remind my colleagues, the superintendent and staff, of the work session that begins at 1 o'clock on the 21st. So we'll start our day at 1. Okay? Thank you all. Meeting adjourned.